You have to ask her.
This is the largest volunteer-operated railway museum in the United States. It has nearly 500 artifacts in its collection, and it is primarily operated and maintained by volunteers. Almost everyone that you see here today is a volunteer, working here, volunteering their time, doing this because of their passion for the history of the rail and transit industries and their desire to preserve it, maintain and interpret it for current and future generations. We have plans to continue to develop our campus and to increase and improve the experience that visitors have when they come here.
I came to the museum this way from a very far suburban city just to see the streetcars and the other modes of transportation they have here. It's been a wonderful experience.
Today we're having a celebration of Chicago transit, including streetcars and the rapid transit car like the one we're riding right now. And so on our streetcar line, several different Chicago streetcars are operating. This is a relatively modern CTA transit car that was built, I believe, in 1969 and only retired several years ago. Also operating on our main line that we just passed is an example of a Chicago area interurban train dating from the days when the suburban railroads in Chicago were electrified and people commuted from the suburbs into the city on electric trains, some of which ran over the current L structure into downtown. The tram system in Chicago was once one of the biggest in the world. At one time it had 1,000 miles of track and 3,000 streetcars. It last operated on June 21st of 1958 on what was called the Clark Wentworth streetcar. And that was the last line to have streetcars and to be converted to buses. The replacement of streetcars with buses took a relatively long period of time, happened on a gradual basis, and ultimately all of the streetcar routes were replaced with buses. And for a while, and even to some extent today, some of the bus routes still roughly match the streetcar routes that they replaced.
As a little child, I actually rode this very streetcar to go to the zoo. My parents would take me to the zoo on Sunday because it was an inexpensive place to go and everything back in those days. And this streetcar used to take you right to the south gate of the Brookfield Zoo.
The young people today have probably never seen a streetcar, and the only way they would be able to see one, unless they happen to live in an area where they're still used, would have to come to the museum to have that experience.
I have never seen a streetcar in my life. This will be my first time experiencing it, and I'm excited to try it out.
The best part of a train, I love trains, and I like them.
Streetcars began to fall out of favor around the time of the Great Depression, in the right after the late 1920s. As the automobile became a more popular form and choice of transportation, use of public transportation diminished, and streetcars became less and less economically viable and were first replaced by buses.
I'm not sure that that was the right decision because today they're putting streetcars back into different cities. Now, Chicago hasn't done that yet, but other cities in the United States have put streetcars back into service. These streetcars probably would have been better than buses because they were faster. A bus always had to stay at the corner till everybody got off, and then everybody got on, and they paid their fare. And buses would, the dwell time, the amount of time it took for buses to get away from a corner was always more than streetcars, because streetcars you'd get on the back, you'd pay your fare to the conductor, the people got off at the front, stoplight changes, and away they went. So streetcars on streets were faster than buses.
When the streetcars were being retired, there were people who were interested in preserving them for future generations to be able to see. And so they were acquired by private individuals and stored in various places. until a more formal way of preserving them could be arranged. And that ultimately led to the creation of this museum in the 1960s and the collection of the streetcars here.
In the mid-1950s, when the CTA decided it was time to get out of the streetcar business, 570 of the cars were sold to be stripped for parts for L cars. Of the remaining 30, one car was preserved, and that's this car. It was bought by another museum. When they lost their lease, they donated it to us, and with the exception of having to work on it, well, it's been running out here for many years. This car was on display in downtown Chicago in 1987 for the 40th anniversary of the CTA. We have our air conditioning turned on, 1940s style. It's called open the windows and go.